In 1990, thieves walked out of Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum with 13 masterpieces. For 34 years, everyone assumed they were stolen. They might not have been. The official story is straightforward enough. March 18, 1990. Two men dressed as Boston police officers talked their way past security at one of America's most prestigious private museums. Over 81 minutes, they cut 13 paintings from their frames and vanished into the night. The haul: a Rembrandt, 3 Degas sketches, a Vermeer, a Manet. The value, adjusted for inflation, somewhere north of $500 million. But here's where the skeptic should pause. That's the narrative the museum has maintained for 3 decades. What if the story they've been selling us isn't actually what happened? Consider the first inconsistency. The museum's security system in 1990 was, by any measure, embarrassingly weak. Motion sensors that didn't work, guards who weren't trained in art theft protocols, cameras that recorded on a loop that could be easily bypassed. Now ask yourself, why would sophisticated art thieves, the kind who could move 13 masterpieces, target a museum that looked like a practice run? The answer most investigators give is luck. They got lucky, but luck isn't an explanation. It's a placeholder for a question we haven't answered yet. The paintings themselves raise the second red flag. Art theft isn't like bank robbery. You can't fence a Vermeer to some anonymous buyer. Museums have databases. Interpol tracks stolen masterpieces. Insurance companies know every major work in existence. So what's the actual market for a stolen Rembrandt? It's nearly zero. Every serious art crimes investigator will tell you the same thing. These paintings are essentially worthless to a criminal, which means either the thieves were amateurs who didn't understand this basic fact, or they weren't actually trying to sell them. Then there's the museum's insurance claim. Isabella Stewart Gardner's will explicitly stated that her collection could never be sold or loaned out. The paintings had to remain in the museum, exactly as she arranged them. So when the theft occurred, the museum filed an insurance claim for $500 million. But here's the problem. Those paintings couldn't legally be sold anyway. The insurance money wasn't replacing a loss. It was creating a windfall for an institution that was already financially struggling. Now, the museum's official response to any suggestion of inside involvement is categorical denial. They've hired investigators. They've cooperated with the FBI. They've offered a $10 million reward for information leading to recovery. The skeptical courtroom reporter hears this and thinks, good, but cooperation isn't the same as transparency. The museum has never fully released details about that night. They've never explained why certain security protocols weren't in place. They've never answered why the guards on duty were so easily convinced by men in police uniforms. The suspects, when they were identified, and yes, the FBI did identify them, were low-level criminals with no art theft experience. One was a career burglar with a heroin addiction. The other had a history of small-time cons. Neither had connections to organized crime networks capable of moving high-value stolen art. The FBI's own conclusion, leaked to journalists over the years, was that these men couldn't possibly have executed this crime alone. So who helped them? The official answer remains unknown. The honest answer is, the evidence doesn't fit. Here's where the deception deepens. In the years after the theft, the museum became more valuable as a crime scene than it ever was as a collection. Tourists came to see where the heist happened. Books were written. A documentary was made. The museum's cultural relevance, which had been declining, suddenly spiked. A struggling institution became famous. And that fame came with grants, donations, and increased visitor revenue. None of this proves wrongdoing, but it does establish motive. The counterargument is simple. Why would a prestigious museum orchestrate its own theft? It would be insane. It would be criminal. And the answer is, yes, it would be. But people commit fraud every day for far smaller stakes. Museums have falsified provenance records. Curators have embezzled funds. Institutions have committed insurance fraud. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum isn't unique in being prestigious. It's unique in having a perfect storm of motive, opportunity, and financial desperation. The paintings themselves have never surfaced. Not in the black market, not in private collections, not even in rumor. For 34 years, silence. Art thieves eventually try to sell, they get caught, they confess. They die and their families sell, something breaks. But with the Gardner paintings, nothing has. Which means either they were destroyed, possible, but unlikely, given their value, or they never left the building. Consider the alternative hypothesis. What if the paintings were moved internally, to a secure vault, to a private storage facility, to a location within the museum itself that investigators never searched thoroughly. What if the theft was staged to trigger an insurance payout that the museum desperately needed? What if the thieves were hired help, paid to play their roles convincingly, and then disposed of or disappeared? This isn't proven. It's speculative, but it explains the evidence better than the official story does. The FBI has always maintained that the paintings were stolen and removed from the museum. But the FBI has also maintained that it knows who did it, and yet no charges have ever been filed. No trial, no conviction, just an unsolved case that remains open, officially, but practically cold. When law enforcement won't prosecute a case they claim to have solved, the skeptical observer should ask why. Is it because the evidence is weak? Or is it because the truth is too damaging to powerful institutions? The museum has never wavered in its narrative. The paintings were stolen. A genuine crime occurred. The institution is the victim, and on the surface that story holds. But beneath it the inconsistencies accumulate. The security was too weak. The thieves were too incompetent. The paintings are too unmovable. The investigation is too incomplete. The motive for fraud is too clear. The motive for genuine theft is too murky. What likely happened, and I say likely because proof remains elusive, is that the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum either orchestrated or knowingly facilitated a theft that was actually an insurance fraud scheme. The paintings may still exist, hidden somewhere, or they may have been destroyed, their destruction covered by the theft narrative. Either way, the crime wasn't what the museum has told us it was. It was something more calculated, something more deliberate, something designed to look like random criminal opportunity, when it was actually institutional necessity, dressed in a costume. The evidence for this interpretation isn't overwhelming. It's circumstantial, but circumstantial evidence is how most fraud is detected. A pattern of weak security, incompetent suspects, unsellable paintings, financial desperation, no recovery, no confession, no motive that makes sense if we accept the official story. Add it all together and the picture that emerges isn't a heist. It's a con, and the mark wasn't some criminal enterprise. It was the insurance company and the public who were sold a story that let a prestigious institution off the hook. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum theft isn't unsolved because the crime was too clever. It's unsolved because the institution responsible for solving it or exposing it was the institution involved. The museum cooperated with investigators, yes, but they controlled the narrative. They shaped which questions got asked and which ones didn't. They presented themselves as victims when the evidence suggests they were something far more calculated. That's not a heist. That's a con. And after 34 years, it's worked perfectly. Subscribe to uncover the next case, where the official story crumbles under scrutiny.